The ships came from every corner of the galaxy. They were big and small, fast and slow, but all of them carried warriors. The neutral moon of Erdes glowed silver in the light of 3 distant suns. On its surface stood the Galactic Colosseum, a building so large that it could be seen from space. Every 10 years, the greatest warrior species in the galaxy gathered here. They came to show their strength. They came to prove their worth. They came to remind the universe who ruled the stars. Vorn stood on the highest balcony of the Colosseum and watched the ships land. He was tall, almost 8 feet, and his body was covered in natural armor that looked like black stone. His people, the Keth, had conquered more worlds than any other species. They were born for war. Their bones were like steel. Their skin could stop bullets. When the Keth walked into battle, their enemies ran. But Vorn was not alone on the balcony. Beside him stood Ressa, a general of the Solari. She was shorter than Vorn, but moved like water. The Solari were known for their speed. They could dodge laser fire. They could strike 10 times before an enemy blinked once. Ressa had killed more enemies than she could count, and she had never been touched in combat. On the other side stood Grom, warlord of the Brock. He was even bigger than Vorn, a mountain of muscle and rage. The Brock did not believe in armor or weapons. They believed in strength. Grom could tear a metal door apart with his bare hands. He had once killed a beast the size of a building by breaking its spine. These 3 were the most powerful warriors in the galaxy. Their species had fought each other for thousands of years, but here on Erdes, there was peace. Here, they only watched and judged. Another gathering, Ressa said. Her voice was soft but sharp. The same species. The same displays. Nothing new. There is something new, Vorn said. He pointed to a small ship landing at the far end of the field. It was tiny compared to the others, simple and gray. The humans have come. Grom laughed. It was a deep sound, like rocks falling down a mountain. Humans? Those small pink creatures from the Outer On? Why are they here? They asked to be included, Vorn said. The council allowed it. A waste of time, Grom said. I have seen the reports. They are weak. Soft skin. Brittle bones. They live for less than 100 years. What can they possibly show us? Ressa tilted her head. I have heard strange things about them. They say humans once ruled their planet not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to die. All creatures die, Grom said. Yes, Ressa agreed. But humans take longer to accept it. Vorn said nothing. He watched the small gray ship open its doors. 4 figures walked out. They were short, barely 6 feet tall. They wore simple uniforms, dark blue with no decorations. They carried no visible weapons. Compared to the massive warriors around them, they looked like children. The leader of the group was a man named Jiho. He was 32 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes. He walked with his back straight and his head high. He did not look at the giant aliens around him. He did not seem impressed or afraid. He simply walked forward like he belonged here. Behind him came Hannah, a woman of 28. She had tied her hair back tight, and her face showed no emotion. Her hands were rough from years of training. She had fought in 3 wars on Earth and had never lost a battle. Next was Taiho, the youngest at 25. He was lean and quick, with bright eyes that looked everywhere at once. Some of the aliens pointed at him and laughed. He was so small, so young. He looked like prey. Last came Yuna, 30 years old, the team's medical officer. But she was not just a healer. She trained with the others every day. On Earth, she had learned that a doctor who could not fight was a doctor who could not save anyone. The 4 humans walked across the landing field. Aliens of all shapes and sizes watched them. Some were curious. Most were amused. A few were confused. Why had these tiny creatures come to a gathering of warriors? Jiho led his team to the registration center. A tall alien with 4 arms looked down at them. Species? It asked. Human, Jiho said. From Earth. The alien checked its screen. You are new. This is your first gathering. Yes. What do you wish to demonstrate? Jiho thought for a moment. We would like access to a training facility. We wish to show how humans prepare for battle. The alien made a strange sound that might have been a laugh. Training? You want to show us? Training? Yes, very well. Training Room 7 is available. It has basic equipment. Will that be enough for your demonstration? It will be enough, Jiho said. The alien gave them directions and turned away, already forgetting about them. The humans were not worth remembering. They were too small, too weak, too ordinary. They would train for a few hours, realize they did not belong here, and leave. That was what the alien expected. That was what everyone expected. As the humans walked toward Training Room 7, they passed groups of warriors from across the galaxy. The Keth stood like statues, their armored bodies gleaming. The Solari moved in quick, graceful patterns, practicing strikes that were too fast to see. The Brock lifted massive weights, roaring with each rep. Taiho looked at them and swallowed. Captain, he said quietly. They are very big. Yes, Jiho said, and very strong. Yes. And very fast. Yes. Taiho was quiet for a moment. Do you think we can impress them? Jiho stopped walking. He turned and looked at his team. Hannah stood ready, her eyes hard. Yuna waited calmly, her medical kit on her back. Taiho looked nervous, but determined. We are not here to impress them, Jiho said. We are here to show them who we are. We are human. We do not have armor. We do not have claws. We do not have speed or strength like theirs. But we have something else. What? Taiho asked. Jiho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We do not know how to quit. He turned and kept walking. His team followed. On the high balcony, Vorn watched them go. His eyes were narrow, thoughtful. Beside him, Grom laughed again. Training, the warlord said. They want to show us training. This will be amusing. Ressa did not laugh. She watched the humans disappear into the building, and something cold moved through her chest. She did not know what it was. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was something else. We should watch them, she said. Grom shrugged. Why not? I could use entertainment. Vorn nodded slowly. Yes, let us see what these humans consider training. None of them knew what they were about to witness. None of them knew that in a few hours, their understanding of strength would change forever. None of them knew that they would never look at the galaxy the same way again. But they would learn. The humans would teach them. The observation deck above Training Room 7 was large enough to hold 100 warriors. By the time the humans began their warm-up, nearly 50 aliens had gathered to watch. Word had spread quickly through the Colosseum. The new species, the small pink ones from the outer arm, wanted to show off their training. It was too funny to miss. Vorn stood at the front of the observation deck, his arms crossed over his armored chest. Ressa stood beside him, her quick eyes watching every movement below. Grom had brought a chair, a massive thing made of stone, and sat with his legs spread wide. Other warriors filled the space behind them. Keth soldiers, Solari scouts, Brock fighters. All of them wanted to see what these tiny humans would do. Below, in the training room, Jiho gathered his team in a circle. We start with basics, he said. Stretching, warm-up. Then we move to drills. Hannah nodded. Taiho bounced on his feet, trying to shake off his nerves. Yuna set down her medical kit near the wall, then joined the others. They began to stretch. Simple movements. Arms over heads. Bending at the waist. Reaching for toes. Rolling shoulders. The aliens above watched with growing amusement. "This is their training?" a Solari officer asked. He made a clicking sound with his tongue. "My children do this before breakfast." Grom laughed loudly. "Look at them. They bend like old creatures. They are so stiff." Even Vorn allowed himself a small smile. The humans moved slowly, carefully. They did not look like warriors. They looked like merchants or farmers, people who had never seen battle. But Ressa did not laugh. She watched closely. She noticed how each human moved with purpose. There was no wasted motion. They were not just stretching. They were preparing. The warm-up continued for 10 minutes. Then Jiho clapped his hands once. "Running," he said. The 4 humans began to run around the training room. It was not fast. It was not impressive. They jogged at a steady pace, their feet hitting the floor in a simple rhythm. The aliens watched and grew bored. "Is this all?" Grom asked. "Running in circles? A child could do better." "Perhaps they are just beginning," Ressa said. "Beginning what? A nap?" The laughter spread across the observation deck. Some aliens started to leave, thinking the show was over. But then something changed. After 20 minutes of running, the humans did not stop. They kept going. Their breathing grew heavier, but their pace stayed the same. Sweat began to appear on their faces, making their skin shine under the lights. 30 minutes passed. Then 40. Then an hour. The aliens who had started to leave came back. The laughter had stopped. The training room was not large, but the humans had now run what must have been several miles. And they were still going. Why did they not stop? A Keth soldier asked. No one answered. Finally, after nearly 90 minutes of running, Jiho called a halt. The humans stopped, breathing hard, their clothes dark with sweat. But they did not sit down. They did not rest. They drank water quickly and moved to the next exercise. "Combat drills?" Jiho said. Hana stepped forward. She moved to the center of the room and began a series of strikes, punches, kicks, elbow strikes, knee strikes. Each movement was sharp and precise. She was not fast like the Solari, but there was something brutal in her technique. Every strike was meant to hurt. Every movement was designed to break bones and tear flesh. Teho joined her. They began to spar. The young man attacked with quick combinations. Hana blocked, dodged, and countered. They moved across the training room, exchanging blows that echoed through the space. On the observation deck, the mood had changed. The aliens were no longer laughing. They were watching. Ressa leaned forward. "Their technique is efficient," she said quietly. "No wasted energy. Every strike has a purpose." "They are still slow," Grom said. But his voice had lost some of its confidence. The sparring continued. Taiho landed a hard punch to Hana's ribs. She grunted but did not stop. She grabbed his arm, twisted, and threw him to the ground. He hit hard, the impact loud enough to make some aliens wince, but Taiho got up. He shook his head, wiped blood from his lip, and attacked again. They fought for 30 minutes without rest. By the end, both of them were covered in bruises. Taiho had a cut above his eye. Hana was holding her side where his punch had landed. But neither of them complained. Neither of them asked to stop. Yuna stepped in. She cleaned Taiho's cut with quick, practiced movements. She checked Hana's ribs, pressing gently. "Bruised," she said. "Not broken." "Good," Hana said. "What is next?" Jiho pointed to the weights in the corner of the room. "Strength training." The aliens expected the humans to lift small weights. After all, they were small creatures with thin arms and narrow chests. But Jiho walked to a barbell loaded with heavy plates. He lifted it over his head, his arm shaking, his face turning red. He held it for 10 seconds, then lowered it. Then he did it again. And again. And again. Hannah joined him with her own weight. Then Taiho. Then Yuna. They lifted until their muscles screamed. They lifted until their bodies begged them to stop. And then they lifted more. "This is madness," a Brock warrior said. "They will break themselves." "Perhaps that is the point," Ressa said. Grom was no longer sitting. He had risen from his chair and moved to the edge of the observation deck. His small eyes were fixed on the humans below. He had seen warriors from 100 species train. He had never seen anything like this. The humans trained for another hour. Then another. They ran. They fought. They lifted. They did exercises that pushed their bodies to the limit and beyond. Sweat poured from them like rain. Their muscles trembled. Their lungs burned. But they did not stop. Finally, after nearly 4 hours, Jiho called a halt. The 4 humans stood in the center of the room, exhausted, battered, barely able to stand. "Good work," Jiho said. His voice was rough. "Tomorrow we do it again." The observation deck was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The aliens stared at the humans below as if seeing them for the first time. Vorn turned to Ressa. "How long do their people usually train?" "I do not know," she admitted. "But I have never seen any species push themselves so hard." "They are fragile," Grom said slowly. "Their bodies are weak." "Why do they hurt themselves like this?" No one had an answer. Below, Yuna was wrapping Taiho's bruised hands. Hana was drinking water, her chest heaving. Jiho stood apart, looking up at the observation deck. His eyes found Vorn's. For a long moment, the 2 warriors stared at each other. Then Jiho nodded once and turned away. The aliens remained on the observation deck long after the humans had left. They did not know what to say. They did not know what to think. They had come to laugh at the weak little creatures from Earth. No one was laughing now. Something had changed. Something important. The strongest warriors in the galaxy had watched the humans train, and they had fallen silent. That silence would grow. That silence would spread. And soon, the entire galaxy would understand what it meant. But that was still to come. For now, there was only the silence and the memory of 4 small humans who refused to stop. The next day came, and the humans returned to Training Room 7. The observation deck was more crowded than before. Word had spread through the Colosseum during the night. The small creatures from Earth did something strange. They trained until they broke. They pushed themselves past all reason. It was worth seeing. Vorn was there again, standing in his usual spot at the front. Ressa had brought 2 of her officers. Grom had not slept well. He kept thinking about what he had seen. The image of that young human, Taiho, getting thrown to the ground and rising again would not leave his mind. Below, the humans began their warm-up. Same as before, stretching, running, simple movements. But this time, no one laughed. The aliens watched in silence, waiting for what would come next. The training was harder than the day before. Jiho pushed his team with more intensity. They ran faster. They fought longer. They lifted heavier weights. Hours passed, and still they did not stop. By the 3rd hour, Taiho was struggling. His legs were shaking. His face was pale. The bruises from yesterday had not healed, and new ones were forming. He stumbled during a drill and nearly fell. Jiho was beside him in an instant. "Get up, Captain." Taiho's voice was weak. "I do not know if I can." "You can. Get up." Taiho looked at his captain. Joe's face was hard, but his eyes held something else. Not anger, not disappointment. Something like faith. Like he knew Taiho could do this, even if Taiho himself did not believe it. The young man took a breath. He pushed himself off the ground. His legs screamed, but he stood. Again, Jiho said. Taiho began the drill again. On the observation deck, a Solari officer turned to Ressa. Why does he not let the young one rest? He will damage himself. I do not know, Ressa admitted. But watch his eyes. The young one. He's not angry at his captain. He is grateful. Grateful? For being pushed to collapse? Perhaps humans see pain differently than we do. Grom was pacing at the back of the observation deck. He could not sit still. This is wrong, he muttered. They are destroying themselves. No species trains like this. No species should train like this. And yet they do, Vorn said quietly. The question is why? The hours continued to pass. 4 hours. 5 hours. 6. The Solari were confused. Their own warriors trained in short, intense bursts. Speed required fresh muscles. No Solari would train for more than 2 hours at a time. The Brock were disturbed. They valued strength, but they also valued survival. Training until your body failed was not strength. It was stupidity. Or so they had always believed. The Keth were silent. They were a patient species, but even they had limits. Their warriors trained hard, but they also rested. They understood that a broken soldier was useless. Why did the humans not understand this? Below, Hana was sparring with Jiho. They had been fighting for nearly an hour. Both of them were covered in sweat and blood. Hana's knuckles were raw. Jiho had a bruise forming on his jaw. But neither of them slowed down. Then it happened. Hana threw a punch, and something cracked. She gasped and pulled her hand back. Her smallest finger was bent at an ugly angle. Broken. Yuna rushed over. She looked at the finger and winced. It needs to be set. Do it, Hana said. Yuna took hold of the finger. This will hurt. I know. Yuna pulled. There was a loud pop as the bone moved back into place. Hana made no sound. Her face went white, but she did not cry out. She did not even close her eyes. Yuna wrapped the finger quickly, binding it to the next finger for support. You should rest. No. Hana flexed her hand, testing it. Pain flashed across her face, but she ignored it. What is next? The observation deck had gone completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just watched a creature break a bone, have it reset without any numbing agent, and then ask what came next. It was beyond understanding. Grom finally spoke. They are mad. They are completely mad. No, Vorn said. His voice was thoughtful, almost respectful. They are something else. I do not know what, but it is not madness. Ressa's officers were whispering to each other. One of them approached her. General, we have analyzed their biology. They should not be able to do this. Their bodies should have failed hours ago. By every measurement we have, they should be unconscious. But they are not. No, General, they are not. Then our measurements are wrong. Or we are missing something. The training continued. 7 hours now. The humans were barely standing. Taiho had vomited twice but refused to stop. Yuna had treated her own twisted ankle and kept going. Jiho was limping from a knee injury, but still led every drill. And Hana, with her broken finger wrapped in white bandages, was still fighting Dot as the 8th hour began. Jiho finally called a stop. The 4 humans collapsed where they stood. They lay on the floor of the training room, chests heaving, bodies broken, faces empty, but they were smiling. Taiho was laughing weakly. Hana reached over and patted his shoulder. Yuna was already checking everyone's injuries, making notes for treatment. And Jiho lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face. On the observation deck, Vorn turned and walked toward the exit. Ressa followed him. Grom hesitated, then went after them. "What do you think?" Ressa asked. Vorn did not answer immediately. They walked through the corridors of the Colosseum in silence. Finally, he stopped at a window that looked out over the landing field. "I have fought for 200 years, Vorn said. I have conquered worlds. I have killed enemies beyond counting. I have seen every species in this galaxy, and I have learned what makes a warrior." He turned to face them. His armored face was unreadable, but something had changed in his eyes. "I thought I knew what strength was. I thought it was armor and speed and power. I thought it was being born with the right body, the right genes, the right gifts." He paused. "I was wrong." Grom shifted uncomfortably. "They are still weak. Their bodies are nothing compared to ours." "Yes," Vorn agreed. "Their bodies are weak, but something inside them is not. Something inside them refuses to break, no matter how hard you push. And that," he looked back toward Training Room 7, "that is more dangerous than any armor." Ressa nodded slowly. "I have been thinking the same thing. My people are fast. We can dodge any attack. But what if we face an enemy who does not stop coming? What if we face someone who takes our best strike and keeps walking forward?" "Then you lose," Vorn said simply. "You lose because eventually you will tire. You will slow. And they will still be coming." They stood in silence for a long moment. Outside the window, ships continued to land, bringing more warriors to the gathering. But none of them seemed to matter anymore. Something had changed on the neutral moon of Erdis. The strongest warriors in the galaxy had watched the humans train, and they had begun to understand fear. The Keth research vessel was hidden in the lower levels of the Colosseum. It was a place of science, filled with machines that could analyze any life form in the galaxy. Vorn had ordered his scientists to study the humans. He needed answers. He needed to understand what he had seen. The head scientist was an old Keth named Torak. His armor had faded to gray with age, but his mind was still sharp. He had spent centuries studying the biology of warrior species. He had mapped the genes of the Solari that gave them speed. He had analyzed the bone structure of the Brock that gave them strength. He thought he understood what made a species powerful. He was wrong. "Tell me," Vorn said. He stood in the center of the research room, surrounded by screens and data. "What are these humans?" Torak pulled up the information on the main screen. Images of the 4 humans appeared, along with detailed scans of their bodies. "Physically, they are unremarkable," Torak began. "Their bones are standard calcium structures, easily broken compared to ours. Their muscles are thin. Their skin has no armor, no scales, no protective covering of any kind. Their reflexes are slow. Their senses are limited. By every physical measurement, they are one of the weakest species we have ever recorded." "Then how did they train for 8 hours without stopping?" Torak hesitated. "That is where things become unusual." He changed the display to show brain scans and chemical analyses. Humans have a unique neurological system. When they experience pain or exhaustion, their brains produce chemicals that allow them to ignore it. They call it adrenaline. It floods their system in moments of crisis and gives them temporary strength and endurance far beyond their normal limits. "Many species have similar responses," Ressa said. She was standing beside Vorn, her arms crossed. "My people produce speed hormones during combat. Yes, but those responses are temporary. Minutes at most. The human system is different." Torak's voice grew quieter. "They can sustain this state for hours, days even. Their bodies will scream at them to stop, but their minds can override the signals. They can push through pain that would incapacitate any other species. Grom was in the corner of the room, listening with growing unease. That is impossible. No mind can ignore pain forever. You are correct, Torak said. Eventually, their bodies fail. But here is what disturbs me most. He pulled up new data. We found records from their home planet. Historical records. Stories of humans who continued fighting with mortal wounds. Stories of humans who ran for hundreds of miles without stopping. Stories of humans who survived conditions that should have killed them instantly. The screen showed images from Earth. A human running across a desert. A human climbing a frozen mountain. A human swimming through dark ocean waters. Humans evolved on a harsh planet, Torak continued. They were not the strongest predators. They were not the fastest. They survived by outlasting their prey. They would chase an animal for days, never stopping, never resting, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They call it persistence hunting. Silence filled the room. They are persistence predators, Vaughn said slowly. They do not kill through strength or speed. They kill by refusing to stop. Exactly. Torak's voice was grim. And this trait is not just physical. It is part of their minds, their culture, their very identity. They celebrate those who never give up. They despise those who quit. Their entire species is built around the idea of continuing forward no matter the cost. Ressa stepped closer to the screen. What happens when they face an enemy they cannot outlast? They die, Torak said. But they die fighting. They die moving forward. They die trying. And that, he paused. That creates a different kind of problem. Explain. Think of it this way. If you face a Keth warrior, you know his limits. You know how much damage his armor can take. You know how long he can fight. You can plan accordingly. Torak turned to face them. But how do you plan against an enemy with no apparent limits? How do you defeat someone who simply will not stop? You kill them, Grom said. You crush them before they can reach you. Can you? Can you guarantee you will kill every single one before even one of them reaches you? Torak shook his head. The humans have a saying. It does not matter how many times you knock them down. It only matters that they keep getting up. Vorn was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the training he had witnessed. He thought about Taiho, the young one, falling and rising again and again. He thought about Hana and her broken finger, asking what came next. There is more, Torak said. Something I discovered in their medical files. Go on. Humans heal. Not like we do, slowly over time. They heal quickly, and they heal wrong. Torak brought up new images. Scars, badly set bones, damaged joints. Look at these. Every one of these humans has been seriously injured before. Multiple times. Broken bones. Torn muscles. Deep wounds. All warriors carry scars, Ressa said. Yes, but look closer. These injuries should have ended their fighting careers. This one, he pointed to Jiho's file, broke his spine 5 years ago. He should not be able to walk. But he does. He commands. He fights. How? Because humans do not accept injury as final. They treat it, work through it, and adapt. Their bodies may be weak, but they are also stubborn. They refuse to stay broken. The room fell silent again. The information hung in the air like a bad smell. Everything the warriors of the galaxy believed about strength was being challenged. The Keth had their armor. The Solari had their speed. The Brock had their muscles. But the humans had something else. Something that could not be measured by any machine. I do not like this, Grom said finally. I do not like what you are telling me. Neither do I, Torak admitted. But it is the truth. These humans are not powerful. They are not impressive. By every standard we use to judge warriors, they should be at the bottom of the list. But they are not, Vorn said. No, they are not. Because our standards are wrong. We judge warriors by what they are born with. Humans judge warriors by what they refuse to lose. Vorn turned and walked toward the door. Ressa and Grom followed him. At the doorway, he stopped and looked back at Torak. Thank you for the report. What will you do, Supreme Commander? Vorn thought about it. He thought about his people, who had conquered 1,000 worlds. He thought about his enemies, who had fallen before the Keth armies. He thought about the future and what it might hold. I will watch them more closely, he said, and I will hope that we never have to fight them. He left the research room and walked back toward the Colosseum. The corridors were busy with warriors from across the galaxy, all of them preparing for the demonstrations and challenges that would come. They were proud. They were confident. They believed they knew what strength meant. Vorn no longer shared that belief. In Training Room 7, the humans had finished their session for the day. They were resting now, treating their injuries, preparing for tomorrow. They did not know they were being studied. They did not know that the most powerful beings in the galaxy were afraid of them. Or perhaps they did know. Perhaps that was why Jiho had smiled when he looked up at the observation deck. Perhaps he understood something that the aliens were only beginning to learn. Humans were not strong. Humans were not fast. Humans were not powerful. But humans did not stop. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Grom could not sleep. He lay in his quarters aboard the Brack flagship, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what he had seen and heard. The humans, the training, the science. It was all wrong. It went against everything he believed. The Brack had ruled their corner of the galaxy through strength. Pure, simple, honest strength. They did not need clever strategies or advanced technology. They were bigger. They hit harder. They won. That was the way of things. That was the way it had always been. But now these tiny creatures from Earth were making him doubt. And Grom hated doubt. Doubt was weakness. Doubt was for lesser species. He rose from his bed and made a decision. If he was wrong, he would prove it. If the humans were truly nothing special, he would show the galaxy. And if they were something more, well, then the galaxy needed to know that too. The next morning, he called for a meeting in the main chamber of the Colosseum. Vorn came. Ressa came. The human delegation came. Warriors from dozens of species filled the viewing stands, curious about what the Brack warlord wanted. Grom stood in the center of the chamber, his massive form casting a long shadow. When he spoke, his voice echoed off the walls. I have watched the humans train, he said. I have heard the reports about their endurance, but reports and training mean nothing. Words are easy. I want proof. He turned to face Jiho, who stood with his team near the entrance. Human, I challenge your people to the trial of combat. A murmur ran through the crowd. The trial of combat was an old tradition, used to determine a species' rank in the galactic hierarchy. It was brutal. It was dangerous. Many species had lost warriors in the trial. Jiho stepped forward. His face showed no surprise, no fear. What are the rules? 3 waves of Brack warriors. Unarmed combat. Survive all 3 waves, and your species will be recognized as worthy warriors. Fail. Grom smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. And you will leave this place in shame. If you leave at all. Ressa moved to Jiho's side. She spoke quietly, so only he could hear. You should refuse. The trial is designed for species like the Keth, strong species, fast species. No one has ever survived the 3rd wave. Jiho looked at her. What happens if we refuse? Nothing official. But every species here will know that humans back down from a challenge. Your reputation will be finished before it begins. Jiho nodded slowly. He turned back to Grom. We accept. The crowd erupted in noise. Shouts of surprise. Laughter from those who thought the humans were fools. Worried mutters from those who had seen the training. Grom looked pleased. He had expected the humans to refuse. Their acceptance was even better. Now he would prove to everyone that these creatures were nothing special. The trial will be held tomorrow, Grom announced. At midday. In the main arena. He turned and walked away, his officers following behind him. The crowd began to scatter, everyone talking about what they had just witnessed. The humans were going to face the Brock in combat. It was going to be a slaughter. Vorn approached Jiho before the human could leave. That was either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both, Jiho said. The Brock warriors are not like training partners. They will try to kill you. Not because they hate you, but because that is how the trial works. Death is common. I understand. Do you? Vorn's armored face was impossible to read. I have seen species destroyed by the trial. Not just defeated, destroyed. Their warriors killed. Their reputation ruined, their future ended. You are risking everything. Jiho looked at his team. Hana stood ready, her wrapped hand flexing. Taiho was pale but determined. Yuna was already thinking about medical preparations. They were battered from days of training. They were tired. They were hurt, but none of them looked afraid. We have a saying on Earth, Jiho said. What does not kill you makes you stronger. Vorn was silent for a moment. And if it does kill you? Then we die standing. He gathered his team and left the chamber. Vorn watched them go. Beside him, Ressa let out a long breath. They are going to die, she said. Perhaps. The third wave has never been beaten. The Brock send their elite guards. Even we Solari could not defeat them, and we are faster than anything in the galaxy. The humans are not fast. No. So what chance do they have? Vorn thought about everything he had learned. The endurance. The persistence. The refusal to stop. He thought about the science, about what the old researcher had said. How do you plan against an enemy with no apparent limits? I do not know, he admitted. But I am going to watch. And I suggest you do the same. In the human quarters, Jiho gathered his team for a planning session. They sat in a circle on the floor, their bodies still sore from training. The Brock are strong, Jiho said. Stronger than anything we have ever faced. We cannot match them in power. So what do we do? Taiho asked. We use what we have. Speed, coordination, teamwork. Jiho looked at each of them in turn. And endurance. The Brock expect us to fall quickly. They expect us to give up when the pain becomes too much. We will not give them what they expect. Hannah cracked her knuckles, even the broken one. How do we fight them? Their skin is thick. Normal strikes will not hurt them. We target weak points. Joints, eyes, throat, the places where even thick skin cannot protect. Jiho drew a quick diagram on the floor. We work together. One draws attention, the others strike. We never stand still. We keep moving. We make them chase us. For how long? Yuna asked. Until they tire. Or until we win, or until we die. Jiho nodded. Yes, that is also possible. But we did not come here to die. We came here to show the galaxy what humans are made of. Tomorrow we will show them. The team spent the rest of the day preparing. They studied the Brock. They practiced their techniques. They discussed every possible situation they might face. When night came, they tried to sleep, but sleep did not come easily. Taiho lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his family back on Earth, his mother, who had cried when he left, his father, who had told him to make them proud, his younger sister, who had made him promise to come home. He was scared. He was not ashamed to admit it, at least to himself. The Brock were monsters, giant creatures built for killing. And tomorrow, he would have to face them with nothing but his fists and his will. But he also knew something else. He knew that if he ran, if he gave up, he would never forgive himself. The fear was real, but so was the determination. He was human. He was not the strongest. He was not the fastest. But he would not quit. He closed his eyes and finally slept out across the Colosseum. Grom was also awake. He was selecting warriors for the trial. The first wave would be standard fighters. Good warriors, but nothing special. The second wave would be veterans, experienced and deadly. The third wave would be his elite guards, the best of the best. The humans will not survive the first wave, one of his officers said. Probably not, Grom agreed. But if they do, the second wave will finish them. And if they somehow pass the second wave? Grom laughed. Then my gods will tear them apart. No species has ever beaten the third wave. These tiny pink creatures will be no different. But even as he said it, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered doubt. He had seen them train. He had seen them push through pain that would stop anyone else. He had seen them refuse to fall. What if they refused to fall tomorrow? He pushed the thought away. It was impossible. The humans would lose. They had to lose. The Brock were the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Nothing could change that. Nothing. The arena was full. Every seat was taken. Warriors from across the galaxy had come to watch the humans face the trial of combat. Some came to see a good fight. Most came to see a slaughter. The arena floor was a wide circle of packed dirt, surrounded by walls too high to climb. Above the walls, the viewing stands rose in tiers, filled with aliens of every shape and size. At the highest level sat the leaders, Vorn of the Keth, Ressa of the Solari, and Grom of the Brock. Grom was smiling. He was about to prove that humans were nothing special. The gate at one end of the arena opened. The four humans walked out. They wore simple clothes, no armor, no protection. Their bodies still carried the bruises and scars from their training. They looked small and fragile against the massive arena walls. Jiho led his team to the center of the arena floor. He looked up at the crowd, his face calm. Hannah stood beside him, her wrapped hand ready. Taiho was bouncing slightly on his feet, trying to stay loose. Yuna had left her medical kit outside the arena. In this trial, there would be no time for healing. A horn sounded. The first wave was coming. The opposite gate opened and 6 Brock warriors entered. They were big, almost 7 feet tall, with thick muscles and gray skin. They carried no weapons because they did not need them. Their fists were like hammers. Their bodies were like walls. The Brock warriors spread out, surrounding the humans. They moved slowly, confidently. They had done this before. They knew how it ended. Stay together, Jiho said quietly. Remember the plan. The first Brock attacked. He charged at Taiho, arm raised for a crushing blow. Taiho dodged to the side, barely avoiding the strike. The Brock's fist hit the ground and left a crater in the dirt. The fight began. The humans moved like water, flowing around the Brock attacks. They did not try to block. Blocking a Brock would break bones. Instead, they dodged and weaved. When openings appeared, they struck. Hana drove her elbow into a Brock's knee joint. The creature roared in pain and stumbled. Jiho struck another in the throat, a precise hit that made the giant choke and gasp. Taiho and Yuna worked together, drawing attacks and creating openings for each other. It was not elegant. It was not pretty. The humans took hits. Taiho was thrown across the arena by a backhand blow. He hit the wall hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs. but he got up. He always got up. The first wave fell. It took 20 minutes of brutal, ugly fighting, but the 6 Brock warriors lay on the arena floor, unconscious or unable to stand. The humans stood over them, breathing hard, bleeding from dozens of small wounds. The crowd was silent. They had expected the first wave to end the fight. It had not. Grom's smile had faded. He stood and raised his hand. Second wave. The gate opened again. 8 Brock warriors this time. Bigger, stronger, veterans of 100 battles. They walked into the arena with cold eyes and hard faces. They had watched the first wave fall. They would not make the same mistakes. The second wave was brutal. The veterans did not charge blindly. They worked together, coordinating their attacks. They herded the humans, cut off escape routes, forced them into corners. The humans fought back, but they were taking more damage now. Hannah took a crushing blow to her ribs. She heard something crack. Pain exploded through her chest, but she did not fall. She grabbed the Brock's arm and twisted, using his momentum against him. He crashed to the ground, and Taiho was there instantly, striking the creature's temple with everything he had. Jiho was cornered. 3 Brock surrounded him. He dodged the first attack, but the second caught him in the side. He felt ribs break. The third Brock raised its fist for a killing blow. Yuna hit the creature from behind. She jumped onto its back and wrapped her arms around its throat. It was like trying to choke a tree, but she held on. The Brock thrashed, trying to throw her off. Jiho used the distraction to escape. The fight continued. The humans were slower now, their injuries piling up. But the Brock were also tiring. They had never faced an enemy like this. Every time they knocked a human down, the human got back up. Every time they thought the fight was over, it continued. Finally, after nearly 40 minutes, the second wave fell. The last Brock collapsed, brought down by a coordinated attack from all 4 humans. They stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by fallen giants. The crowd was no longer silent. They were murmuring, whispering, unable to believe what they were seeing. The humans had beaten the second wave. No species had ever done that. No species was supposed to do that. Vorn leaned forward in his seat. His eyes were fixed on the arena floor. The humans were barely standing. They were covered in blood, their own and the Brock's. They should have been unconscious. They should have been dead, but they were still standing. Grom rose from his seat. His face was dark with anger. Third wave. Ressa grabbed his arm. This is enough. You have proven your point. They have not surrendered. The trial continues. They will die. Then they die. Grom pulled his arm free. That is the trial. The gate opened one final time. 4 figures emerged. The elite guard of the Brock. Each one was over 8 feet tall, massive, even by Brock standards. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for their size. Their eyes were empty of emotion. They were killing machines, the most dangerous warriors the Brock had ever produced. The arena fell completely silent. Even the most optimistic observers knew this was the end. The humans were broken, exhausted, barely able to stand. The elite guard was fresh, deadly, and unstoppable. Jiho looked at his team. Hana was holding her side, her broken ribs making every breath agony. Taiho's left arm hung limp, dislocated at the shoulder. Yuna had a deep cut above her eye, blood running down her face. "Well," Jiho said. His voice was hoarse but calm. "This is it. We should run," Taiho said. He was joking. There was nowhere to run. No. Hana straightened up, pushing through the pain. "We do not run. We are human." Yuna wiped the blood from her eye. Together? Together. The elite guard attacked. What followed was not really a fight. It was something else. Something that would be remembered for centuries. The humans had no chance of winning. They knew it. Everyone knew it. But they fought anyway. They dodged when they could, took hits when they could not, and kept moving forward. When they fell, they got up. When they were knocked down, they rose again. Taiho fought with one arm. Hannah fought with broken ribs. Yuna fought half-blind from the blood in her eye. Jiho fought on pure willpower, his body broken but his spirit undefeated. They landed hits. Not enough to seriously hurt the elite guard, but enough to show they were not finished. They drew blood. They made the elite guard work for every inch dot, and slowly, impossibly, the elite guard began to tire. They had never faced anything like this. They were used to enemies who knew when they were beaten. Enemies who surrendered or died quickly. These humans did neither. They just kept coming. The fight lasted over an hour. In the end, 3 of the elite guard lay on the ground, overwhelmed by the relentless assault of 4 broken humans who refused to stop. The 4th guard stood facing Jiho, both of them barely able to stay upright. They stared at each other. The guard was confused. He had hit this human dozens of times. He had broken bones, torn flesh, done everything short of killing. And still, the human stood. Jiho raised his fists. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. But his eyes were steady. "Come on," he said. "I am still here." The guard did not move. He looked at this impossible creature, this small, fragile, broken thing that would not fall. And for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. He stepped back. Then he turned and walked away. The arena exploded in chaos. The elite guard had withdrawn. The trial was over. The humans had won. In the stands, Vaughn rose to his feet. Ressa was beside him, her eyes wide with shock. Grom sat frozen, unable to process what he had just witnessed. On the arena floor, the 4 humans collapsed together. They had won. They had survived. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human, and the galaxy would never forget. The medical wing of the Colosseum was quiet. Soft lights glowed from the ceiling. Machines hummed in the background. In 4 beds, the human team lay recovering from their injuries. Jiho had broken ribs, a fractured arm, and internal bleeding that the alien doctors had barely managed to stop. Hana's chest was wrapped in bandages that covered 3 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. Taiho's shoulder had been fixed, but he also had a cracked skull and swelling in his brain. Yuna had lost 2 teeth, broken her ankle, and needed 20 stitches to close the wound above her eye. By any measure, they should have been dead. The alien doctors said so repeatedly. They had never treated injuries this severe in patients who were still breathing. They did not understand how the humans were still alive, but they were alive. All 4 of them. Battered, broken, but alive. Vorm came to visit on the 2nd day. He walked into the medical wing alone, without guards or officers. He stood at the foot of Jiho's bed and looked down at the human captain. Jiho was awake. He could not move much, but his eyes were clear. "Supreme Commander," he said. His voice was weak but steady. Vorn did not respond immediately. He stood in silence for a long moment, his armored face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "I have been fighting for 200 years. I have conquered worlds. I have faced enemies that would make your nightmares seem pleasant. I thought I had seen everything the war could offer." He paused. "I was wrong." Jiho waited. "What you did in that arena, I do not have words for it. In my language, there is no concept for what you are. You are not strong. You are not fast. You are not powerful. And yet you defeated warriors who should have killed you in seconds. We did what we had to do. No, you did more than that. You did the impossible." Vorn leaned closer. "I have been thinking about this since the trial ended. I have been trying to understand what makes you different. And I think I finally know. What is it? You do not accept defeat. Other species, when they are beaten, they stop. They surrender. They accept that they have lost. But your people, you never stop. Even when you are broken, even when you are dying, you keep moving forward. You keep fighting. His voice dropped lower. That is terrifying. Jiho managed a small smile. We do not think of it that way. We just do not know how to quit. That is exactly what makes it terrifying. Vorn straightened up. I came here to tell you something. After the trial, there was a meeting. All the leaders, Kef, Solari, Rock, and a dozen others. We discussed what to do about your species, and some wanted to declare you enemies. They said that humans are too dangerous to exist freely. They said we should destroy your planet before you can spread across the galaxy. Jiho's expression did not change, but something hardened in his eyes. But most disagreed, Vorn continued. Including me. What we saw in that arena was not a threat. It was a gift. Your people have something that we lack. Something valuable. Something that could make the galaxy stronger. What did you decide? We have granted humanity full recognition as a warrior species. You will have a seat at future gatherings. You will be consulted on matters of war and peace. You will be treated as equals. Jiho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were wet. Thank you. Do not thank me. You earned it. Every drop of blood, every broken bone, every moment of pain. You earned it. Vorn turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. One more thing. I have given orders to my warriors. If we ever fight the humans, we are not to underestimate them. Not ever. Even a wounded human is dangerous. Even a dying human is a threat. He looked back at Jiho. I hope we never have to fight you. But if we do, I want my people to be ready. He left. The door closed softly behind him. Over the next few days, more visitors came. Ressa arrived with a gift, a Solari blade that had been in her family for generations. She gave it to Hannah with a simple nod of respect. You fight like a Solari, Ressa said. Fast, efficient, deadly. Hannah accepted the blade with both hands. I am honored. Use it well. And if you ever want to train with us, you are welcome. Rom came last. He stood in the doorway of the medical wing for a long time before entering. When he finally approached Taiho's bed, his massive form seemed smaller somehow, diminished. Young one, he said. Taiho looked up at the warlord who had tried to kill him. He should have felt fear. He should have felt anger. Instead, he felt nothing but calm. Warlord, I watched you in the arena. You fell more times than I could count. Every time, I thought you were finished. Every time you got back up. Grom shook his head slowly. I have led armies for 100 years. I have seen bravery. I have seen foolishness. But I have never seen what you did. I do not have a word for it. We call it stubbornness, Taiho said. Grom made a sound that might have been a laugh. Stubbornness. Yes, perhaps that is the right word. He reached into a pouch at his belt and pulled out a small stone. It was black and smooth, polished by centuries of handling. This is a victory stone. My father gave it to me after my first battle. It has been in my family for 20 generations. We give it only to those who have proven themselves worthy. He placed the stone on Taiho's chest. You are worthy. Taiho could not speak. He just looked at the stone, then at Grom, then back at the stone. Heal well, young one. I hope to fight beside you someday, not against you. Grom turned and walked away. A week later, the humans were ready to leave. They were still healing, still weak, but they could walk. They could stand. That was enough. The whole Colosseum came to see them off. Warriors lined the path to their ship, thousands of them standing in silence. It was a sign of respect usually reserved for the greatest heroes of the galaxy. Jiho led his team through the crowd. Hana walked beside him, the Solari blade at her hip. Taiho carried the victory stone in his pocket. Yuna had her medical kit back, now filled with alien medicines and technology that Earth doctors had never seen. At the entrance to their ship, Jiho stopped. He turned and looked at the gathered warriors. Keth, Solari, Brack, dozens of other species. All of them watching, all of them silent. "Thank you," Jiho said. His voice carried across the field. "For the chance to prove ourselves. For the honor you have shown us. Humanity will not forget this." Vorn stepped forward from the crowd. "Will you return?" "Yes, in 10 years, at the next gathering. We will be here. We will be waiting." Jiho nodded once. Then he turned and led his team onto the ship. The door closed. The engines powered up. Slowly, the small gray vessel rose into the sky. On the observation deck, Vorn watched it climb. Ressa stood beside him. Grom was nearby, his arms crossed over his massive chest. "They will be back," Ressa said. "Yes, they will be stronger. Yes." Should we be worried? Vorn thought about it. He thought about everything he had learned about humans. Their endurance, their stubbornness, their absolute refusal to quit. He thought about what it would mean if that species ever turned its eyes toward conquest. Worried? No. He watched the ship become a dot in the sky, then disappear entirely. We should be grateful. Grateful? Those creatures could be our enemies. They could try to conquer the galaxy. With their persistence, their refusal to stop, they might even succeed. He turned to face Ressa and Grom. But they are not our enemies. They came here to earn our respect, not to destroy us. They want to stand beside us, not against us. He looked back at the empty sky. We have found the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they want to be our friends. A small smile crossed his armored face. Yes, we should be very grateful. Grom grunted in agreement. Ressa nodded slowly. The gathering of the galaxy's greatest warriors was over. Ships began to leave, heading back to their home worlds. The Colosseum grew quiet, but the memory of what had happened here would spread. Stories would be told. Legends would grow. The humans had come. The humans had fought. The humans had won, and the galaxy would never be the same again. On the small gray ship heading toward Earth, Taiho sat by a window, watching the stars. He held the victory stone in his hand, feeling its smooth surface. "Do you think they will remember us?" He asked. Jiho was resting in a chair nearby, his eyes half closed. He smiled at the question. The same question Taiho had asked before the gathering began. "Yes," he said. "They will never forget." Taiho nodded and looked back at the stars. Behind them, somewhere in the endless dark, the moon of Eridus was fading into the distance. But his memory would stay with them forever. They were human. They did not know how to stop Dot, and the galaxy had finally learned what that meant.